What's up, guys, and welcome back. Darren Nick here with Fantasy Football Advice. If you've read the title of this video, then you know what it's about. These are the players you want to trade for to win your fantasy football championship. Before we get further into this video, I just want to take a moment to give you guys some great news. Nick, as you know, is in school, but he will be posting a video on Saturday. This video will mainly be tailored towards those subscriber leagues, but he will also be hosting a question and answer section. This video is also completely open, so if there's something you want him to talk about, go ahead and leave it in the comments section down below. And also, please feel free to submit as many questions as you want. We're going to try to answer as many as possible, and Nick will be posting this video over the weekend. If you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. We post videos all season long. And also, please give this video a big thumbs up. So with that, let's get back to the video. So the fantasy playoffs are looming, and this is the last week you can submit trades, so it's more than enough time to start thinking about the playoffs. It's very important you start targeting those teams that need a win right now. And at this point, you're either in contention, have your fantasy playoffs locked up, or you're already out of the running. You should have a safe understanding of where you stand currently and what it's going to take to get you there. Once you figure that out, you need to establish what moves you're going to make to take you to that next level. Certain things you want to look at are things like matchups, trends, and game theory. Playoff outlook is extremely important. Throughout this video, you're going to hear us mention something called DVOA. And what does that stand for? DVOA stands for Defense Adjusted Value Over Average. Now, this information is vitally important. The DVOA measures a team's efficiency by comparing success on every single play to a league average based on the situation and the opponent. So, what does that mean? Basically, it's a metric used to determine how effective a defense is on every single play when compared to a baseline average defense. It takes into account things like yardage gained versus down and distance, garbage time, and many more factors. It is so much more accurate in measuring a strength of a defense than just the simple raw numbers do. So we're going to use this DVOA along with other factors when determining who we want on our team for the playoffs. And then we're going to get into 10 players you want to add for your team based off this information. Remember, it doesn't matter what your regular season record is. If you lose in the playoffs, you're out. You could be 10-0 right now and have the bye week. But if you lose that first match, depending on your league settings, you may not even win any of your money back. So to start, let's talk about the running backs as usual. We're going to talk about Melvin Gordon, and boy, has this player been fantastic. He seems to be a touchdown machine, and he is being fed the ball all the time in this offense. And it's an offense that can put points on the board. They love to use Melvin Gordon in the red zone. So how does his matchup look? In week 15, he is at home against the Raiders. Now the Raiders currently stand 27th against the run. And even better than that, they are ranked 29th in DVOA against opposing running backs. That's great news. There should be plenty of opportunity for him in that game. So far, there haven't been any game scripts that have eliminated Melvin Gordon from being a valuable fantasy asset. Now, he definitely may be hard to grab based off his value, but he is on a bye right now, so a team that needs to win may put that deal through if you offer something good enough. So moving over to week 16, he's on the road against the Browns, the Cleveland Browns, who are ranked 29th against the run and still have a great DVOA ranking of 20th in the league against running backs. Now Gordon is currently 3rd in rushing and tied for 2nd in rushing touchdowns. He also has the 3rd most receiving yards than any RB is averaging. And through the last 4 games, he's averaging 56 yards. Trust us when we say this, he will be a top 5 option for sure both weeks, with the upside to completely go off and give you a great advantage in the playoffs. That could happen in either of these 2 games. Now the next running back we're going to talk about may come of a little bit more of a surprise, and that's Latavius Murray for the Oakland Raiders. Now we're extremely high on this player, and even though he's coming off of a bye week, which was preceded by a week where he scored 3 rushing touchdowns, there has always been a lot of question marks throughout this season about who is going to get the touches in this backfield. The owners of Latavius Murray have not been able to trust him throughout the season, which makes him one of the easier targets to get that could produce the most value for your team throughout the playoffs. So get this, in week 15, he is at the Chargers, who are 17th against the run and 19th in DVOA against opposing running backs. So then, You move into week 16, and this is where it gets even better. The Raiders are at home against the Colts. The Colts currently ranked 32nd against the run and 31st in DVOA. Both the Colts division and the Raiders division are both pretty tight, so you should see these as very competitive games towards the end of the season, where a lot of teams may not even be playing their starters. These teams, the Raiders especially, will be fighting for home field advantage in the playoffs. They're going to lean with the players who they feel most comfortable with, and let's be honest, Latavius Murray, even though he hasn't been in the league that long, has 1 full year under his belt and has looked phenomenal lately, especially in that last game he played in. Currently, he has 8 touchdowns in 7 games this year. That's literally a touchdown every 9.8% of his carries. If you're in a situation where you can start Latavius Murray and Melvin Gordon, then you should easily be able to outscore your opponent's running backs throughout the playoffs. This will give you a huge advantage and should secure your spot in the championship. So moving on to another player that could win you a championship, and to be honest, this has been one of my favorite players for years. He has been one of the top running backs in the league for a long time, and for good reason. The player we're talking about is LeSean McCoy. Honestly, I feel like this guy could play for the Browns and still put out a productive season. He is so talented. It's a shame the Eagles gave him up. We are sure that LeSean McCoy will be on a lot of fantasy championship rosters. In week 15, he plays at home against the Browns. Like we mentioned before, the Browns are ranked 29th against the run and 20th in DVOA against running backs. And in week 16, he plays a divisional game against the Dolphins. Now they're ranked 13th against the run and 5th in DVOA against running backs, so we know that it's not the greatest matchup on paper, but we've seen before, LeSean McCoy is virtually matchup proof. He is an elite talent. Also, if you've watched the Dolphins throughout the season, it seems that a lot of players have had fantasy success against them. And let's be honest, a lot of the teams that have played against them have more weapons than the Bills do. There is no guarantee Sammy Watkins is coming back, and LeSean McCoy is basically their only skilled player on the team that could win them the game alone. It's a divisional game, so you know both teams are really going to want to win. McCoy is another player who is virtually unable to be taken out based off game script. He is an elite pass catching back, so even if the Bills do fall behind, McCoy will be out there on every snap, catching passes and getting more fantasy points for your team. His value is not as high as it was earlier on in the season, and he is fully back from his injury. The reports coming out are saying that his hamstring is healed up nicely. He's ranked as a top 5 RB this week, and if he has another good game, it may be a little tougher for you to grab him. We have one more running back we want to talk about, and this one should be a little easier for you to obtain. That's Spencer Ware for the Kansas City Chiefs. In week 15, the Chiefs play at home against the Titans. A lot of people are afraid to play their players against the Titans, but it's truly not a bad matchup. They currently are ranked 15th against the rush and are 30th in DVOA against RBs. And then moving on to week 16, he has a divisional game against the Broncos, who are ranked 23rd against the rush and 18th in DVOA. Now, don't be afraid of the Broncos because everyone knows they have a tough defense, but if you look back, they have been allowing a lot of fantasy points to running backs this season. You can truly beat the Broncos on the ground, but you cannot beat them in the air. We've seen it before. From a game theory perspective, we expect the Chiefs to try to run as much as possible. They want to eliminate mistakes and turnovers, something they've been good at for years. Justin Houston is coming back for this defense, so we can definitely predict that their defense should allow them to get a little bit ahead in the beginning of the game. They're going to want to run out that clock. The Chiefs defense plays much better at home as well. Both teams have great winning records and are battling for that division. This has a lot of playoff implications, which means both teams are going to be going as hard as possible. These are the type of things you want when playing your fantasy football players. The Chiefs do not want to have any turnovers in this game, something that the Broncos are really good at. Spencer Ware's price tag is not that high. Jamal Charles went out, everyone knows this, but since then, Spencer Ware has not been a top 5 RB. Some people forget he was coming back from injury. When we're looking to make trades, we want to get the best value possible, and Spencer Ware hits all the marks. Think about it. On paper, some of the fantasy owners may be concerned when they see the Titans and the Broncos in the fantasy playoffs. Don't be fooled. These could be good matchups for Spencer Ware, and if you can get him at a great value, you have to pull the trigger on this move. He's a player who is more than likely taken off the waiver wire, and we have a feeling he's going to be on a lot of championship teams this year. We're going to be moving over to some wide receivers. But before we do, just want to give you guys a quick message. Almost every fantasy football player goes to NFL.com and they go to ESPN and they look at the player rankings that are provided by the same analysts week over week. Let's be honest, how many times have those rankings screwed you over, given you the wrong player to start or sit? For me, it's a lot. Within the fantasy football app in ESPN, it does give you information like how good the opposing defenses are against your certain position, but that's so vague. A defense consists of 11 different players at one time. Each team has its strengths on defense and its weaknesses on defense. A bad matchup on paper could truly be a good matchup. What makes a good fantasy football player is someone that digs a little deeper, someone that goes that extra mile. Take a look at some of the resources that we've provided in the past. We will also throw them in the link in the description box below. As we know, there's a saying, any given Sunday. Nobody truly knows what's going to happen, but if you collect more information and the right type of information than your opponents, over time, the moves that you make and the starts and sits that you do are going to be what wins you your regular season games, your playoff games, and your championship. Everyone hits bad luck. Every team gets hurt with injuries, but if you consistently do your homework, make the right moves, eventually it will all pay off for you. So sorry about that tangent. We really just want you to take a look at some of the resources that we provide. We are not sponsored in any way by any of these websites, but they have truly helped us be successful in fantasy football, and that's all we want for you guys. So let's get back over to those wide receivers. The wide receiver we want to mention first is Amari Cooper. Now, as you know, this player is phenomenal. He is a superior deep threat. And in week 15, he plays a divisional match against the Chargers. They allow a lot of fantasy points, whereas they're ranked 10th against the pass. He has had success on them before, and he can have success on them again. But it gets much better. Week 16, he is at home against the Colts. Now, the Colts are ranked 30th against the pass, and both games have big play implications. One thing you should always look at when determining if your player has the ability to have a big game or not is how competitive these games will be. How does the other team play? Will that give Amari Cooper an ability to have a big game? Well, there's two things that these teams have in common. The Chargers and the Colts are both able to move the ball. That means they have shootout potential. It's very likely that if it was a one-sided affair, they may lean more heavily on the run. But based on their ability to move the ball, both the wide receivers and the running backs should both be effective. The next player who could surely win you your fantasy championship is Julio Jones. Now, as we all know, this player was drafted more than likely first or second overall, so he may be a tough bargain. But believe us when we say this, if you are able to get him, even for a steep price, you will be heavily rewarded. In week 15, they play at home against the 49ers, who rank 31st against wide receiver ones. Then in week 16, they go on the road against the Panthers, who are ranked 27th against wide receiver ones. Jones is going to have an absolute field day against them. Just think about it. Matt Ryan is one of the top fantasy quarterbacks, and yet the only receiving fantasy player who is even worth rostering is Julio Jones. A player like Drew Brees, who is at the top, has so many weapons who are still rostered on teams. Brandon Cooks, Michael Thomas, Willie Snead, the list goes on. Yet Matt Ryan puts up phenomenal numbers, and the only receiver worth mentioning is Julio Jones. When you think about that, that just tells you how valuable he is to this offense and how involved he is and will be moving forward. Now, like we said, this player may be hard to get, but if you target a team that needs to win right now, Julio Jones is on a buy. This may be your last opportunity. This next wide receiver is a must own. Based off of his value and production, this wide receiver is virtually a steal. The player we're talking about is Tyrell Williams for the San Diego Chargers. Tyrell Williams can be found on waiver wires right now. If he is there, snag him and play him. He has great playoff matchups. Week 13, he is at home against the Buccaneers, who are ranked 15th against the pass. The Buccaneers can also move the ball, so there's always that shootout potential. Then moving to week 14, they get the Panthers, who are also terrible against the pass. Then you ask yourself, that has to be it. But no, they get the Raiders, who are ranked 24th against the pass. All three of these games could have high box scores. Nobody knows when Travis Benjamin will come back. Even when Travis Benjamin is available, Tyrell Williams still has value. You could use that as a bargaining chip in trading for him. Throughout the time Travis Benjamin has been injured, Tyrell and Phillip Rivers have been establishing a chemistry. That just doesn't go away. He knows he can trust Tyrell Williams' hands, and unlike most players, Tyrell Williams has taken that opportunity and he has succeeded. So then you have week 16. That's against the Browns. Phillip Rivers is a great quarterback to have in the fantasy playoffs, and whenever you have a great fantasy quarterback, there's a wide receiver in there that is a key player, and that's Tyrell Williams. He's not only a guy who can win you the championship, but he's a guy that can help you get there. Quietly, he is now 13th in fantasy points and 8th in yards, and not one fantasy owner is treating him that way. Make sure you grab him, and you grab him quick. He is on a bye week this week, so now is the time to get him. Now, the last wide receiver candidate we have is Stefon Diggs. Now, this is a guy that can definitely win you a championship. In week 15, the Minnesota Vikings play at home against the Colts, who are ranked 30th against the pass. We mentioned before, but they are also 25th in DVOA against wide receiver ones. That's exactly what Stefon Diggs is for this offense. Then moving to week 16, they play the Packers. We all know how that goes. They're ranked 18th against the pass and 28th in DVOA. That's why you see so many successful wide receivers in those games. If you've been following Stefon Diggs lately, you'll notice that his target share has gone up considerably since they got a new offensive coordinator. There is no reason that is going to change. Target a player who thinks they're selling high. Now, don't go anywhere. We still have one tight end and one quarterback to talk about. The good thing about both of these players is that they shouldn't cost you too much. Let's start with the tight end. You'll see a common trend here, and that's the San Diego Chargers. Now, the San Diego Chargers have two tight ends, but the one we're targeting is Antonio Gates. No one ever gives the correct value for Antonio Gates, and it baffles us. Every year you see him at the bottom of the draft board. Now that Hunter Henry is in town, that's just another bargaining chip for you to get him. I mean, let's just be real. Antonio Gates gets the touchdowns. And in week 15, home against the Raiders. And then week 16, we mentioned it before, the Browns, who are ranked last in DVOA against opposing tight ends. Literally 32 out of 32. The best opportunity for you to get Gates is Hunter Henry. And when you swing this trade, let them know that Hunter Henry is returning from this injury. It's true, but the only thing is, we know that Antonio Gates is not being moved out of this offense. They may want to get Hunter Henry involved, but all these games have implications to have enough production to go around. And let's be honest, Antonio Gates isn't going anywhere. Now, we just mentioned there was a quarterback we wanted to talk about. And let's be honest, there are a lot of quarterbacks that are high-end that have decent playoff schedules. But those high-end quarterbacks don't make great trade targets. The ones that make the great trade targets are the ones that have the lower value. The best production, schedule, and value for the price tag. There's only one player that truly fits this, and that's Jameis Winston. One reason he makes this list is because he's not going to cost you much, and there's still a chance you can get him off free agency. He's only owned in 75% of leagues, so there's 25% of you out there that could literally grab him right now. Week 15, he has the Cowboys, ranked 25th against the pass. 16, the Saints, ranked 28th. I mean, Jameis Winston is literally playing in the Superdome championship weekend. And if you're struggling at the quarterback position, this is a guy you could truly rely on. This last matchup alone could realistically win you the championship. Do what you gotta do. Make the right moves and grab Jameis Winston. You won't regret it. Okay guys, that's it for today's video. We really hoped you enjoyed this one. This was a lot of fun to make. This was the 10 players you need to trade for to win your fantasy football championship. Now remember, Nick will be posting a video this weekend, so submit your questions. He'll be going over the subscriber leagues and more. He's been gone for a long time, so I'm sure there's a lot of questions you've been waiting to ask him. Well, now's your chance. Besides that, please make sure to subscribe. We just hit 2,000 subscribers and we are really looking forward for what's to come. Your support means everything to us and we really appreciate it. All your comments really make our day. Well, we hope you really take this information and put it to good use. Please be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next video.